Max Kell.
Yep.
Who's winning it?
The Los Angeles Rams are winning the NFC Championship. And I predicted them to win the Super Bowl before the season started. I thought last year the only thing they were missing was some playoff experience for Jared Goff. He has it now. Same thing with McVay, by the way, as the head coach. But there are more specific reasons even than that. We saw them come almost all the way back on the Saints. The first time they played at New Orleans, they wound up losing the game. But recall, the Rams started the season, they hit the highest peak early in the season. Then the Saints hit their highest peak right around the time they played the Rams. The Saints have been in steady decline since then. Little bit, not bad. They're still a great team, but they are not what they were, let's say, 2/3 of the way through the season. Last 5 or 6 weeks of the season. Part of that is they were on the road, but part of that is they haven't been playing as well. Now they're missing their defensive tackle, and what are they seeing in the Rams? The Rams have discovered C.J. Anderson to go with Todd Gurley. The Rams have, or Ndamukong Suh has rediscovered himself and is playing like the guy they paid him to be. So you see the offensive line is healthy. And you think about where the game is still won and lost on the line of scrimmage, who has a pocket, who doesn't. The Rams have a really good offensive line. They're getting a push. They're protecting the quarterback. It's allowing for an incredible two-headed run game. And Gurley can also catch passes, obviously. And it works with the play action with the receivers, even though they're missing Cooper Kupp. And then on the other side, they have those two defensive tackles now, and Ndamukong Suh to go with Aaron Donald, who are collapsing the pocket, nowhere to go. So I think when you add all that up, plus Aqib Talib being back, and Michael Thomas isn't going to go for 212 yards or whatever again, I see a mild upset here. The Rams beating the Saints at New Orleans.
I think it's going to be a nail-biter, but I'm going with the home team. I'm going with the Saints. I can't see anybody beat New Orleans in New Orleans, particularly these Rams. I think the absence of Cooper Kupp is definitely going to affect this team. There's no question about it. Obviously, there's cause to pause for you to pick the Rams when you take into account the fact that Sheldon Rankins is going to be out as your defensive tackle for the New Orleans Saints. He's out with the ACL. He's gone for the year. That's a tremendous loss for them when you've got Todd Gurley coming into the house, particularly Todd Gurley with C.J. Anderson, considering what they did against the Dallas Cowboys and rushing for about 200 plus, what is it, 230.
They each went for over 100 yards.
They each went for over 100
insane.
yards, and they ran for about 278, as a team Saturday night against the Dallas Cowboys. But I'm going to tell you this, even though the Saints haven't been the same, but it was after the Cowboys lost, because even after they beat the Rams and dropped 45 on them, they dropped 51 on Cincinnati, and obviously they dropped 31 on Atlanta, but that's a heated division rivalry. And then after that, they lost to the Cowboys, got beat up, haven't been the same since, and they need to get their bearings under them. I'm thinking about Drew Brees. I'm thinking about Michael Thomas. I'm thinking about the Traquan Smiths of the world. I'm thinking about the Alvin Kamaras and Mark Ingrams of the world. I'm thinking about the ability to run on the Rams and how they're not the Cowboys. Sean Payton is a better coach and a better play caller than anybody that you got in Dallas, whether it's Jason Garrett, Scott Linehan, or what have you. And I think the combination of all of those things are going to put the Saints in a position to really, really make some noise. I will acknowledge that there does need to be a concern. If you're Drew Brees and you're stepping back to pass, throw the football 38, 40 times, that gives Aaron Donald ample opportunities to get at you, which is not something that you want in this game. But I do believe they're going to be able to run on the Rams more effectively than Dallas did. I don't think the Saints are going to be held to 47 yards rushing the way Ezekiel Elliott was. Of course, I think Drew Brees is a better passer than Dak Prescott. I think Michael Thomas, at least at this stage, is a little bit better than Amari Cooper. I think the other assets are going to benefit from the play calling of Sean Payton, and I'm going to pick the Saints to win this game. I think it'll be within a touchdown by about 6 or 7 points, but I'm rolling with the home team.
I got to tell you something. If the Saints win, you haven't mentioned the two players that my mind goes to that I consider the X factors for the Saints in this game. As someone who's picking the Rams, and by the way, if people are wondering, when you pick a team on national TV, does a part of you root for them? Of course, you want to be right. You want to be a smart guy. But the things that would make me nervous about the Saints' chances, meaning that they could win, Taysom Hill, who is a baller. That dude is a baller. Can throw, can catch, can run.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a kind of not just trick play, because you can involve him in so many different ways, but you have to account for him and Ted Ginn Jr. Because that dude, like Michael Thomas is a really good wideout. And if your secondary's banged up and you're attacking a zone, he can be a handful. But he's not the kind of guy where you're like, oh my God, what do you do about him? He's unstoppable, right? He works within a system. But Ted Ginn Jr. is the kind of guy where you're like, ooh, he can get behind the defense, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. So I'd say Taysom Hill and Ted Ginn Jr. are the guys that would scare me a little.
It's interesting that you say this. This is the interesting part we want to throw out. Taysom Hill played last game against the Rams when they won 45-35 over the Rams. He didn't catch one pass. Traquan Smith, who I brought up, only had 2 receptions for 23 yards. Ted Ginn Jr. wasn't in the lineup. See, these are the kind of things that the Rams have to worry about. The Saints beat you with basically Michael Thomas and Drew Brees. And, of course, Kamara and Ingram were running the football, even though Kamara only had 82 yards rushing and Ingram only had 33. In the end, what it comes down to is that, again, I expect them to run effectively, and they'll have more weapons on the field with them this go-round.
I want to say
team
thing, when Taysom Hill played at least 10 snaps, they're 10-0.
Right.
So,
and by the way, they're 17-0 when they get Jared Goff in his career is 17-0 when he gets 120 yards rushing.
Yep.
And now he's got 2 running. See, this is the thing about the NFL and about football generally in a 16-game season now, the playoffs. These are not the same 2 teams that met the first time. So think about what you just said about they didn't even have these guys. Taysom Hill didn't catch a pass, etc.
Yep.
Now you look at the Rams. They didn't have Aqib Talib. C.J. Anderson?
Of course.
You know, I mean, they're 2 different kind of teams.
And the Aqib Talib matchup, if he's on Michael Thomas, is going to be fantastic as well. At the end of the day, for me, it's about one person, Drew Brees. 6-0 at home. He's a different deal at the Superdome, and 6-0 at home during the playoffs. I'm with you, Stephen. I think it's the Saints.
The only thing I would say about that is this. I expected more from that offense against the Philadelphia Eagles last week than I saw. You're going to need to score more points to beat the Rams.
And also,
20 ain't going to get it done.
And also, one word of warning about that. I, like many, last year thought, oh, it's the Saints because they have Drew Brees. I trust Drew Brees more than the other quarterbacks who are left in the NFC. But they didn't advance. And right now, it's in both.
He started with the miracle in Minneapolis.
Okay, whatever, but they didn't advance. In both conferences, you have the old, tested Hall of Famer against the young gun. And there's a tendency to think we've seen those guys do it before, so they're going to do it. Just because you haven't seen the other guys do it yet doesn't mean they're not going to do it. They may be capable of doing it, just haven't seen it yet.